So in the last video I said that we'll be adding the prices to the towers in this video, but I would actually like to add some kind of hover icon, so whenever you click a button you can see what kind of tower you're holding in your hand before you place it. So instead of you just right now you just click on one of these and then you click on a tile, but you can't see what tower you have selected at the moment on the mouse. And what we will actually do, instead of adding the price right now, we will be adding a tower you are carrying around in your hand, and then so you can see what you're placing and where you would like to place it. So let's start doing that. First of all, we need to be able to have something to follow the mouse around. So to make sure that we have a sprite that will follow the mouse around on our screen, we will have to create a new script. So let's go to our script folder and right click, click create, and then create a new script called hover. So this script will be attached to the object that we will carry around in our hand. So whenever we pick up a tower, the element we're carrying around or the object we're carrying around will have this script on it, so it will follow the mouse. So first of all, let's create a new sprite. Click create in the hierarchy. Click, what should we do? We should do 2D object and sprite, and rename the new sprite to hover. So this is going to be the hover icon for carrying around something in our game. We will need to add the hover script to it. So just take the hover script and drag it onto the new hover icon you created. And let's just give it a try with something. Let's click on the sprite here, and then you can find anything, any tower, anything. Let's just take some frost tower idle. So now you have set a sprite. It will of course be set equal to whatever you click here, but for now let's just try with run sprite, and then we can always switch it out when we click the buttons. So right now we just have a sprite on our screen. Nothing happens when we move the mouse because we haven't written any code yet. So we have to jump into our hover script. Let's see if we can find it here. And when you have opened the hover script, we will have to write some code for following the mouse. So actually let's go to under update. Let's make a new function called private void follow mouse. So follow mouse will make sure that the object or the icon will follow the mouse around on the screen. And it's fairly easy to do that. We will simply have to say transform dot position equals camera dot main screen point to world screen to world point. I think that's what it's called, screen to world point, sorry. And then input dot mouse position. Okay, so it actually takes a screen point, which is the mouse position, right? Because our mouse has a screen position right here when it hovers over the different things on here on the screen, and this will actually be translated into a world position, so we can place our sprite on the correct position in our game world. I just got a few warnings about a script that wasn't there. I guess it's nothing. So that's what it will do now. Right now we'll need to execute this function, so we need to go to update and say follow mouse to make sure that our hover icon will follow the mouse around in update. So if we save this, you might see something weird here. If we play the game now, make sure the hover script is on the hover icon. We play the game, then you see it disappears totally. It is it's not visible anymore. But I almost just pointed on my screen. But if you look at the transform up here, you'll see that it actually changes according to where your mouse is, right? So the transform position will be changing based on the mouse position. And but the problem here is that the Z position here is -10, and because it's -10, well, then it's not visible anymore. So we have to do something about this Z position over here. So to do this, we will have to add one more line of code, and it's underneath here. We can say transform dot position is equal to new vector 3, and we just use the transform dot position dot x because it needs its own x position. Transform position dot y, And let's see, we can set the Z position to 0 here. So now it shouldn't go behind the other things, as you can see. So if we save this and we go back and we make sure the ordering layer on the hover icon, I guess we can put it at 2 or something, or let's just say 5 to make sure it's on top of everything. And if we play the game now, then you can see the object is actually following your mouse around right now. Okay, so one more thing. You might have noticed that the object, or the what's it called, the tower, isn't centered on the mouse. The mouse has grabbed the tower in the top left corner of the sprite, and that's because the sprite has a anchor point in the top left corner. So we'll have to do something about this. So let's see what we can do about that. So to fix that, we will have to add some specific sprites that we are using whenever we're showing something on the screen. We're carrying a tower around. So because we're totally fine with the pivot points on all our sprites right now, but we need to change the pivot point on some specific sprites. So the easiest thing you can do is to go to your sprites folder, go to the towers, then you can go and create a new folder called icons. Just right click and click create and call it icons. And let's see, yeah, the easiest thing I would do would be to right click and show in Explorer. And then here we go to towers, and then I would take fire idle, and I will take one of these towers. Let's just take this one, copy it by Ctrl-Z, and go to icons and paste it here. And do the same for ice idle. Find one of the ice towers, copy it, and paste it into icons. And go to poison idle, find it, one of them, and go into icons, paste it. And the storm idle, we'll also take that here. Yeah, let's take this one with the what's it called, the lightning on it. So we take that one and throw it into icons, and then you rename them to fire icon, ice icon, poison icon, and storm icon. Yeah, that's fine. So when you have done that, you go back to Unity and you open your icons folder. Then you select all your new icons and you go to the pivot point and make sure that they are centered here. When you've done that, you set the pixels per unit to 300 as you have with all the other sprites, and click apply. Okay, so if I would go to my hover icon now, and instead of having the ice idle, I would take, like, for example, the fire icon and put it in and play the game instead, then you'll see that the fire tower is now placed on the center, or is centered on the mouse, so it looks better now when we are carrying something around. But we are never changing this icon here, no matter what we click on, so we need to do something so that we can click on the storm tower to have storm button to have a storm tower, and a frost button to have a frost tower, and so on. First of all, we will have to remove the sprite. So click on your hover and click on the sprite here, and then scroll all the way to the top and select none to make sure that there's no sprite, because now it's not visible because we haven't clicked any buttons yet. So the next thing we'll have to do is to make sure that we can activate this. So let's make a public void called activate, and it needs a sprite. And then we need to write the code for activating this. If I could hit the right keys, apparently I can't. There we go. So we need to set the sprite on the hover icon and everything, but actually let's what should we do? Should we just let's just do one thing at a time. Actually, let's say we will have to enable our sprite renderer, or we will have to set our sprite. So let's say sprite renderer, which we don't have yet. We will have to set our sprite renderer, sorry. So we have to go to the top here and write private sprite renderer, so that we have a reference, right? Because on our hover icon, we have the sprite renderer here, and we need to reference that so we can set the sprite right here from our code. So we have a sprite renderer, and then we say this dot sprite renderer equals sprite, not sprite renderer, sprite renderer dot sprite, sorry, equals sprite. So now we're setting the sprite here equal to the sprite we're giving the function whenever we call it. Okay, so now we can activate it. There's a few more things we'll have to switch around and add, but for now this is actually totally fine. Yeah, so next thing we'll have to do, we will have to make sure that this is enabled whenever we click a button. So we have to go to our game manager script, and here's a pick tower function inside the game manager script. The pick tower function will have to enable the hover icon, and the easiest way to do this is to make the hover icon into a singleton, and we already created a function for singleton, or a class for singleton. So we just say hover inherits from singleton and hover. So now it implements that, and it's a singleton, which means that we can actually go to our game manager and say hover .instance.activate. Okay, so our hover instance is asking for a sprite, and that's exactly because we created our activate and it needs to ask for sprite, so we can set the sprite on the hover icon. So the easiest way to do this is to go to our tower buttons and say that each tower button will have a sprite. So write private sprite like so, and just call it sprite. Okay, so this is sprite, but we will actually have to be able to set this one. So we need to get it. So we need to say Control R, E, or right click on it and say quick actions and encapsulate field. And when it does that, we get a get and set, and we are only interested in getting the sprite. We don't want to set it from our script by mistake. So we just delete get. And there you have it. So if you can't right click and do those things, well, then just simply write this code I have right here highlighted. Instead, it's exactly the same. So now we have our what is called property. When we have that, we need to be able to set this from the inspector. So we need to serialize our field. And when the field is serialized, we should be able to go to our canvas and go to our, let's see if these are some consistent with distance error. Yeah, there we go. It's caused because I didn't write this front and through. Just save for now. So we can go to our canvas, tower panel, and here we have our buttons. And because we just wrote this code right here, sprite, and serialize the field, well, then I'm actually able to go to my tower button. Give me 1 sec, I'll bring this one up. Move up here. Then I'm able to go to my tower button script, and as you can see now, there's an empty field called sprite. And here we'll have to add the icon for the button. So this is a poison button. So we have to go to our sprites and towers and icons. Okay, so here we have to take each icon and put on the button. So poison button gets poison icon. Fire button gets fire icon. It's down here. Frost button gets ice icon. I should maybe call it frost icon actually. Gonna rename it to frost just to stay consistent. And storm button will get the storm icon. Where did it go? There. Okay. You can see it's behind my face right now, I think. But if I move it up, you'll see here. You can see, yeah, I added the sprite storm icon for that one. Okay. So now you have all your icons set up. So we need to write the code that will actually change out the sprite. And we would do that in our game manager. So here we have to say when we pick a tower, whenever we click a tower, if you remember, this function is executed. So we can say hover instance activate, and here we will give it the tower dot sprite. There we go. So now we are giving it the tower sprite when we pick a tower. The tower sprite will be given to the hover icon here and set it on the sprite. So let's try. Play the game, see what happens here. I click storm tower, and we have it at reference, object reference, not set to an instance of an object, hover.activate. Okay, so it didn't find the hover, I guess, so we'll need to see what actually happens here. And it's actually pretty obvious what the problem is. I'm setting the renderer, the sprite on my sprite renderer, and I'm pretty sure lots of you guys already noticed this, and maybe you already wrote this code yourself. I guess I got ahead of myself. The sprite renderer is never set, so it's of course null. I need to go to my start function and say this.sprite renderer equals get component sprite renderer, so that my sprite renderer in here, in my script, has a reference to the actual sprite renderer here that is sitting on the hover icon. Because right before we just created an empty a null object without setting it, instantiating it here. Okay, so with that in place, let's try one more time and see if there's more errors. And let's see if I click the storm tower. I have a storm tower in my hand. I can click to place a storm tower. If I click the frost tower in my hand, I can click to place them, and fire also works the same, and poison. Okay, so the problem here is the fact that I still have a tower in my hand after I have placed it, and I'm not able to place more towers because we just coded it so that you can only place one tower at a time. So we need to drop the tower whenever we place it on, or deactivate the hover icon actually, whenever we place a tower on the ground. So let's add the code for doing so. So we need to create a new function called deactivate. So public void deactivate, and this will deactivate the tower. So first of all, we need to say sprite renderer.enable equals false. Okay, so now it's we're deactivating. Let's figure out where we need to call this. We need to call this somewhere in our place tower function. So let's see if I can remember. We have lots of code. Let's see, we have a tile script and there's a place tower function here. Right here we have to call it somewhere, and I guess it's not important where we do it so far. So I guess we can just do it. Let's just do it right here before we buy the tower. Actually, I don't think there's any problems in that. So let's say hover.instance.deactivate. There we go. So now we're deactivating the tower whenever we click on a tile, because when we click on a tile with a tower in our hand, this function is executed, and in this function we can deactivate the tower. Let's try again. Click here, and we take our storm tower, we click, and we basically just place it on the ground. You see that it looks like we actually take the tower we have in our hand and we place it on the ground. And our frost tower, and now you can see something's wrong, right? It doesn't show up again. So what's the problem here? You can see our sprite renderer here is disabled and is never enabled again. So we need to enable it whenever we put something down. So we need to go back to our activate function in our hover icon, and here we have to say sprite renderer.enabled equals true. So if we save this now and jump back into the game and play again, then you should be able to pick up towers, place them on the ground, and pick up another tower and place it on the ground. So now you can see you can actually take towers from the buttons here and place them on the ground. It actually looks like we're placing them correctly on the ground at least. So, and we can still place towers on top of each other. We will of course fix that soon. I am going to end this video here. In the next video we will add the ability to drop towers again, because right now when you pick a tower up in your hand, you will not be able to get rid of it without buying it, and that's kind of problematic. If you, for example, click a button by mistake, well, then you're bound to buy the tower. So we will add the ability for pressing escape to drop the tower without using any money to buy it. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like my Facebook page, and follow me on Twitter. Also, if you really like my videos, I would really appreciate it if you share my videos on your social media or on forums and such stuff like that, because it really helps me out when you do that, so I get some more views on my videos. Okay, so you can also support me if you like my videos. You can support me by getting this project or any of my other projects. You can do that by clicking the bottom link here to get this standalone project, or you can support me on Patreon to get every single project that I have ever created for this YouTube channel. So thank you very much for watching.